Of course, I pay homage to the former president and other distinguished speakers in the room. And it's a pleasure to once more be on this platform. Last year, I had the pleasure and honor to be able to deliver one of these speed talks. But we're doing that this year at a moment when the world is not just changing, it is being fundamentally reshaped, as we heard last night. And as 2025 draws to a close, we stand at a global crossroads, marked by contestation, as we heard last night, but also by extraordinary possibility. And as the United Nations Secretary General reminded us at the recent United Nations 80th General Assembly, our world is in a whirlwind, unsustainable but not unfixable, and we cannot go on like this. But we can choose a different path. And over the past year, commerce, connectivity, and geopolitical contestation have redrawn the world's realities. And fragile peace efforts, though encouraging, remain lackluster across our continent, West Asia and Europe. We've also seen that trade routes and strategic corridors are being redrawn, often at great cost. Supply chains continue to shift as protectionism rises, and the multilateral system with the UN at its heart remains stretched. Some say even undermined, and some say failing. But it's also shown signs of renewal and adaptation as we go through UN at 80. And this year, we've also seen at global dialogues, recently at the G20 and COP28, that there is a growing recognition that we cannot let these disruptions go unmanaged. And we can also not let all tools be the ones we deploy to be able to fix what we're confronting. And there's a clear understanding that resilient economies, fair digital rules, and inclusive growth must be at the center of our collective future. And with Africa's presence at the G20, including the first time the G20 actually got organized on the African continent, this sends a signal that the world is finally and hopefully will continue to pay attention to the concerns long raised by Africa and the global South. And as we look into 2026, one truth I want to put on the table is that we need to look at how Africa is not only on the periphery of the new global order, but it's at the center of gravity. I say this because we've heard it often enough, and including on this platform, that we have a young, dynamic, research-rich, and increasingly tech-enabled Africa, which is partnering and posturing well in the world with its partners across the Indo-Pacific and also Latin America and the Caribbean. And this presents really a new opportunity. So therefore, the corridors of the future, be it from energy, trade, digital, and knowledge, will run through the global South and these regions. And our role, and when I say our, I mean the African role in these shifts, will not and cannot be determined by others. It has to be determined by us, as I said last night. We need to make the right choices, make the right partnerships, and also support the right leadership that will take us through this journey. Therefore, it is important that we are clear-eyed about the opportunities and the challenges ahead of us. I also mentioned the importance of ensuring that this new scramble for Africa that is underway is not something that happens to us, but something that we engineer, shape, and lead. Be it from the markets, critical minerals, and also technology, including artificial intelligence, which are being contested, often in ways that perpetuate the old realities and not the world of today going into the future. So this new global world order we've inherited has to be reshaped and not be anchored in the realities of colonialism and exclusion. And it has to be one that is shaped inclusively, equitably, and with solidarity at its heart. And today, the world is grappling with the convergence of impunity, inequality, and uncertainty. This is actually something the UN Secretary General said at the recent General Assembly in New York. And these forces are not isolated. They are deeply interconnected, and their collision is shaping the realities we face. So for Africa, we know the cost of being left to the side, of being excluded, of being exploited. So we now have a unique opportunity to tap into our agency to help solve and shape what the world going into the future needs to look like. Whether we look at the peace efforts that are unfolding around the world, whether we look at the commercial flows, whether we look at the energy markets, but also, of course, our critical minerals. And so this is something that really needs to be something with Africa at the forefront. And this means positioning ourselves at the center of the new supply chain configurations, ensuring that trade rules reflect our realities, not only external priorities, and leveraging the Africa Free Trade area as a platform for global influence, and not only one that helps us integrate better. So we cannot ignore the hard truths, but we can embrace the possibilities and the opportunities ahead of us and not be despondent, because hope is something that we must adhere to. And so I said last night that last year we spent a disproportionate amount of global resources on militarization, while progress on the SDGs is critically off track. And I also pointed out what could be gained if we redirect some of this expenditure into vaccination, into ending hunger, and also educating our population. Because if we can find trillions for arms and war, surely we can find billions for hope. And international cooperation cannot be then only a naive ideal, but a pragmatic necessity. And in a world where we're talking about leapfrogging, and we're talking about collaborative progress, isolation cannot be something that is being celebrated. I say this because no country or continent can solve the problems we're facing alone. And we can do this by reaffirming the principles and the Charter of the United Nations, which must remain at the center of multilateral action. And we can do this deliberately, reinforcing international law, reasserting the centrality of multilateralism, and not forgetting the importance of justice and human rights as we embrace a reshaped, rules-based international order. And turning to South Africa, we must also celebrate its unique positioning and its responsibility at this juncture. It has been serving and must continue to serve as a bridge between regions, a voice of principled leadership, and also as a global convener, which was so very well displayed over this weekend in Johannesburg. And at a time when all orders are fraying, South Africa's principled diplomatic and intellectual leadership is essential in shaping new ways grounded in fairness, equity, and African renaissance and renewal, something which the former president championed during his era. And as we gather, of course, under the patronage of Thabo Mbeki, a steward of African intellectual rigor, we need to repositioning ourselves and approach 2026 and into the future with renewed determination and clarity. So as I conclude, let us commit to shaping the new global architecture, not simply inheriting it. I mean, actually making sure it responds to our priorities. Let's commit to building corridors of cooperation that elevate Africa's prosperity and its people. Let's advance peace efforts and reform of the global governance architecture grounded in accountability and inclusion. And let us ensure that Africa's voice is not only present in global debates, but in global decisions and actions to take forward these decisions. The future will not wait for us. And as the UN Secretary General has said, the future is not written, it is ours to shape. And we have this opportunity and this privilege to be able to do that, not only in this platform, but going back into our reality. So let's be architects of this new world order. And let's ensure that the next 80 years of multilateral cooperation is something that delivers for humanity and something that we can boldly shape, own, embrace, and deliver. And I thank you all for this opportunity and for your commitment, and my time is up. Thank you.